10 months ago, you spoke at our event, the DMZ, the Demilitarized Zone, where you spoke about your experiences as a child that impacted you, till you are here today. And I think you mentioned so many great quotes, and actually I wrote down on here on my cheat sheet. So.
Oh, good. Because I'm glad you remember.
I like to explore that. It's sad. I almost cried too. When you spoke that story, it was really moving, and it was awful. But then you narrated it such a beautifully that there was a lesson at the end, right? So I really enjoyed that, and I think the audience also was also amazed and also sad and then happy. So it's like mixed emotion, throughout the story. So it's like, and then the delivery was awesome too. So I really appreciate you.
I gotta come to you for all future. When I'm down, when I'm sad, I'm coming to you, Will. This will pump me up for the next 2 weeks at least. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So we were introduced by our common friend, right, Pastor Leanne Younger of the City View Church. So basically, she is our organization partner who helps us with this Demilitarized Zone at her church, City View Church in Northside. It's also a community center. They call it Tripoli Community Center. So we hold our DMZ events either at Tripoli Community Center or at the local community area that they had. So, for example, not the last one, but the second to last one, we had it at the Pittsburgh Project, and they had their own facility. So we went over there and then had the DMZ event, and it was great. So, how did you meet Leanne?
This is like the greatest story ever.
Oh,
you could not start with a better story. Just telling you, Will. So this was in 2021. I was driving from my neighborhood of Troy Hill, and I somehow, and I'd never done this before, but I drove down Tripoli Street on the way to Manchester to go walk in Manchester because it was flat streets. And at that point, we were still, in the pandemic somewhat. And my church, Central Baptist Church, that I grew up in and went to my whole life, was not having in-person church yet.
So that was not a long time ago. So just within this COVID year.
Listen, wow. COVID year, for sure. And basically what happened was I'm driving down the street and I see a guy playing a guitar outside with some people under a couple tents. And I'm like, what is going on here? Now, people would not believe this to look at me, but I'm a major country music fan. So when I saw this dude with this guitar playing a song, I was like, I gotta stop. This gotta be a country music concert. So I pull over, and once I pull over, I sit down and I'm looking around. I'm like, wait, now he's done playing. And then the woman is speaking on a microphone. She's got on a Black Lives Matter shirt. And I'm confused. I don't know what this is. And then out of the corner of my eye, I catch City View Church. And I'm like, this is a church. And honestly, from that moment on, at the end, I went over and talked to the pastor, Pastor Leanne Younger and her husband, Wayne. I talked to Sharon, and I can't pronounce her last name, but shout out to Sharon. That was her with the Black Lives Matter shirt on. And her son was the guitar player playing the music. And when that was over, and I found out that was a church, and I found out that this was a typical church service where, they had a question at the end and you got to talk and it wasn't like your typical church where the preacher's preaching at you and you got to be engaged in the church service. I kept going every Sunday, showing up to a point where I was like, this is my new church. I had to break it to my mother. She's still not happy with me. Oh. And, but it turned out to be like the best move I could make. And I'm so happy that I thought that was a country concert and it turned out to be a church.
Wow.
That's how I met Pastor.
Okay, I'm curious. So what, if I may ask, what was your previous religion if you practice?
Baptist, just Baptist, Black Baptist Church, Central. It's all in the Hill District. Shout out to Reverend Grigsby as well, because I just found out a couple weeks ago, my mother told me that he is retiring from being our pastor at Central, and he wants to like do more. He got his doctorate now. He wants to be a professor.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't say enough about how beautiful it was to grow up in that church. It was just, I believe it was just a time for me to move on to a different experience. So I love both of the churches. But yeah, Baptist church, I still consider myself Baptist.
Okay. Yeah, so that, it's like, like me, I grew up and I still practice being a Catholic. So, their sermon.
Yeah.
It's like you said, like a one directional, right?
Yeah.
So there's no going back and forth until I attended service at the Benedict Moore.
Oh, okay. I've never been there. I've always wanted to go. St. Benedict Moore.
So that's lively. That's how I imagine, when I watch, I was not born here. I was born in Indonesia. So so that's the experiences that I had at Benedict Moore was like watching movie, at the gospel church, where people clap, people, like dancing and and then also the conversation like happen. But then at the Benedict Moore, there are so many times that the pastor just came down, and then just talked to the parishioner.
Yeah, you're like, what?
And there's no timing. I mean,
yes.
The regular church, like, okay, this is the like a first reading, second reading, homily, and then boom, boom, and then within less than 15 minutes to 1 hour, it's over. Right? And then I was there, and it's already like 45 minutes, and we're not done with the first reading.
Listen, that sounds like a Baptist church to me. That sounds Baptist. They got a little Baptist in that St. Benedict.
Right. So it's like, wow, this is different, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Right. So yeah, that's great. So and then ever since that you attend
City View, full-fledged member now. I run the Facebook camera now. I do our Facebook lives. I sort of inserted myself.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, so if you check us out, City View Church, our Facebook, you have to be a member, but I got access. I can make you a member.
You know people.
Yeah, I know people. I can get you in. But yeah, it's phenomenal.
All right,
phenomenal.
Awesome. So you mentioned that you live in Troy Hill, right? So and then in this. Well, I think we can get there, because I think you've been a lifelong Pittsburgher.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty much, right? So what do you do now?
Right now, I'm a teacher. I won't say my school district because they're funny about that, but I'm a teacher out in the suburbs. And and I teach in a suburban, affluent, predominantly white suburban school district. I've been teaching there for 31 years.
Wow. The same district for 31 years?
31 years. Wow. Coming up on my 32nd year. I'm thinking about retiring this year. And it's had its ups and downs, always ups with the kids. But as in any situation, sometimes with the adults, it's not necessarily the best experience that you could have. But it's definitely been a lot of lessons, just like the lessons that I mentioned with my Storyberg story. So it's definitely been a lot of lessons, a lot of growth. A lot of, figured out who I am and what I believe and being able to hopefully elevate and educate other people about, what it's like sometimes to be a Black person in an all-white environment, because I've been in those situations like many times.
Right. Like, and also, I think we need those stories, because otherwise, otherwise, we only hear, and then we hear so many stories. Some are true, some are not true, but live experiences from the first person. I think that's the key, right? Oh. And if we have many stories, shared in person, so it's not, they're not trolls out there. So I think that's good for the community.
Well, you are hitting on something, and I say it everywhere. I know everybody listens to my podcast, and anybody that's ever had a conversation with me is sick of me saying this one thing. I have been saying, and I want to say since the pandemic, that I wish that everybody would stop having opinions about things that they have not experienced and start listening to the people that have.
Right.
And I think that's the recipe for world peace. Like
Yes.
that is the recipe. If you've never been pulled over by the police, a black person, and been in fear of your life, don't have an opinion about that. Listen to the people that have. If you've never been an immigrant to this country and that experience, don't try to have an opinion about that. Guess what? Listen to the people that have. Like, I don't care what it is. Let's listen to the people that have lived the experience and stop trying to force our own belief systems about things that we've never experienced on other people. That is literally something I'm committed to saying in every space. Because I just feel like it's a way forward through some of the stuff that we see happening, whether it's in education or it's happening legislatively. I just feel like that's a way forward for us to be better as a society and as human beings.
I completely agree. And honestly, I experienced racism growing up in Indonesia, and also, as an adult over here in America. But hearing your story, it's nothing compared to what you experienced.
Well,
Just like even like at the level experience, right? So it's like, one is more like an abstract or just, but hey guys, you have to listen to Margo's story. It will blow your mind. As I was hearing your story, it's like, wow, I could not have imagined myself. It might have scarred me for life. And then for things that you said in your story, it was like, wow, it's like, what, I would not have been like you if I experienced those stuff. So going back to your story, your theme was a transformation and passion by centering your experiences as a child. So that's great. I mean, that it's just amazing to me. It amazed me that the transformation not turn into negative, but you could actually transform it into a positive, I don't want to say behavior, but a positive outlook of the humanity, I must say, right? So that's great.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I thank you for that. And in your story, so you moved from Hill District.
Shout out to 2174 Elmore
right.
Square.
So that's Middle Hill. Right?
Boom, there we go. There it is.
And then you moved. Boom. So that's predominantly black, or probably all black, right?
It was all black as I can remember. Now, we were only there until I was, I want to say 4 or 5 years old. But it's still, like, now I can still, like, us sitting here, I can visualize the experience even to this day.
Yeah. And then you moved to Bonaire.
Bonaire, where's Bonaire?
Belzhoover, Bonaire.
Right? Oh, there it is. There it is. And I grew up in Belzhoover, you guys. So Belzhoover is where I actually grew up for the meat and majority of my life. So after we moved from the Hill, we moved to Bonaire, and then we moved to Belzhoover, which was, I would say, my formative education in social environments as well as athletics, my sporting life, because I'm a basketball player. I got a basketball scholarship to college, so awesome. Yeah, Belzhoover. Shout out to Belzhoover. All my Zoovs.
All right, and in your story, you mentioned when you moved there, you were greeted by cross burnings and racist messages. All this. I don't want to say it, but you get out of here, right? And then also you mentioned that your best friend's grandmother pointed a gun at your mother.
Yes. All kind of, yeah. My mother was just talking about that the other day, too. And my mother, if you know anything about my mother, which you don't, but people that know my mother will not find this to be unusual. She is somebody, when she pulled the gun, she was like, and you better not miss. So this woman pulls a gun on her, and she tells her, and you better not miss. I'm like, who does that? Only my mother. So that was a situation.
So you were a first grader at that?
Yeah. When we moved there, I had kindergarten on the Hill District, and so I'm assuming it must have been first grade and I don't know what month or what time of the year, so it could have been the summer. I can't really recall that. But I was definitely, my first schooling at Knoxville Elementary School was first grade, and that's the year that we were in Bon Air.
So how did you feel at that time? Like when you move and then you move to location where, people didn't look like you, right? So, and then they were giving you all this. Did you already know that it was offensive? I mean, especially the cross burnings, right?
Okay. See, looking back, I don't know what I was thinking when we first moved, but looking back, I know in years subsequent, we moved from the quote unquote projects, right, where you're living on top of people and really in close proximity in the Hill District, to our own house. So for our family, it was, the American dream all of a sudden that we're living in a house. Okay. But at the same time, we left that community. That's why, when I hear people say you can go to different parts of the world and people can be like totally poor and still look like and feel like, and you can feel their energy, that they're the happiest people on earth.
Yes.
With no money, right?
Yes.
And no homes. Like they're living in huts and just happy and joyful. And so looking back, I can see how that could be true, because we moved from this community where it feels like you don't have a lot of money, but at the same time, you're happy, you get joy. Then we moved to this other place where you have your own house and, you're feeling good about yourself, but it's not community. You don't have a sense of belonging, right? So I think at times, I was trying to belong by making friends in the neighborhood. And then at other times, it was made perfectly clear by those people's parents and adults in the neighborhood that we were not wanted there. So it was, I guess it was a mixed feelings, wanting to belong, being rejected, sometimes it being okay, your presence, and other times it not being. So it was, I guess it was a mixed bag of emotions.
Yeah.
At that time.
Yeah. Right. Like when you said, like you move, you move up, right? You started to, go into this, when you said, like you said, American dream, single home house with a green lawn.
Yeah, we got grass now. Let's go. Let's go.
And then the process of, moving there is like so traumatic. Right. So yeah, you mentioned that your mother still mentioned that, and yeah, I'm sure it was very traumatic.
Yeah.
Right? Even to her.
Absolutely.
And so, but then you in your story, even like upon hearing the school bus kids yelling racist slurs at you, you still you mentioned that that prejudice was learned.
Yeah.
Right. So when did you have that insight? Was it like then, or was it like many years after that?
I think over time. It was definitely over time. It was definitely over time because, I had different experiences in college. I remember going to college and somebody said to me, I was the first Black person they ever saw in person. I was like, really? Where did you come from?
Which college did you go to?
I went to Indiana University of Pennsylvania. And they were from Windber, Pennsylvania. And this is like in the mid 1980s. And they said I was the first Black person. And I was almost like a novelty, right? And so I remember thinking, and because they hadn't seen a lot of Black people, I didn't feel prejudice coming from them, right? But going back to Bon Air, just witnessing the adults and how they treated myself. There was one other Black family in the neighborhood, but they had, I guess, over time developed respect. I didn't really see a whole lot of prejudice directed to them, but I can't say for sure that it wasn't either. But at some point, I want to say in college, I started believing that it was learned and that proximity, right? Because now I'm in college living right across the hallway in the dorms from this person that never saw a Black person before. And now they're like my best friend, right? And I just remember having that epiphany at some point. I want to say it was college. At the time when it happened, when I was getting called the N-word and not being allowed to come to parties, I think then it was like hurt. It was definitely hurt and pain back then.
Right. Yeah. Just like in your story, like you mentioned that you had to wait outside of the porch.
Oh yeah, I can still visualize their porch. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
To this day, I can see their porch. And I could see myself, almost looking at myself right now, I could see myself on the porch, looking into the window at the other kids, like singing happy birthday. And they were like, yeah, you got to stay. Or if they just went in for any reason, somebody had to go to the bathroom. I was on the porch. So yeah, I could definitely see they had a nice brick porch, and it was a wraparound porch that went all the way around their house. And it was like up on a landing. Yeah, I could see it. Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I could not imagine it. Even as an adult, like I have to wait outside while your friends were inside. And you mentioned singing happy birthday. It's like,
yeah. And it's funny you're saying this now. I'm thinking back to that experience. I don't think I ever told my mother about it. I lived with my mother, my grandmother, my Aunt Linda, and my cousin Larry came around. We're 8 years apart, so a little bit later he came around when he was born. But yeah, so I lived in that house, and I'd have to ask my mother, but I don't remember ever telling her. It was almost something I was ashamed of myself. Even to tell my parents. Like then I was like ashamed, like they won't let me in. Like, what's wrong with me?
Oh,
that's right, yeah.
So like, not necessarily afraid that your mother would have come and boom, boom.
That could be too. It could be both, Will. Two things can be true. Because my mother might have. Yeah. Two things can be true.
Yeah, could be. Yeah.
Too funny.
And so the epiphany happened when you're in college, right? So and I think it was, and you mentioned that person became your best friend. So it's it's a long process for sure. And I guess that it also required you to get to know where or how the other person's perspective.
Right. Yeah.
And then you said, oh, this is a learned behavior, and which can be unlearned, that's the next step, right?
That's it.
Right? Sometimes that you're not born with it, and then you just learn by by the environment or by your parents or by the parents, but then it required the other step to unlearn it, right? And that's the hard part. But then your best friend, he probably has not learned it. I mean, I'm a nerd, right? So when I look at this stuff, when I see like there's zero, there's a negative, there's a positive.
Right.
So it depends on where you are, right? If you're already negative,
on that spectrum, right?
And then you turn it to negative, it requires more effort rather than when you're zero, right? You're zero, like it could be, you could just follow the flow, and then probably one day you're negative, one day you're positive.
Yes.
So yeah. So I guess yeah, I'm also wondering, about that process.
I think a lot of it is how much has been internalized, right? And this is like my theory on life. I feel like, your environment two people can have the same experience, right? True. And one person goes even though it was a bad experience, one person sees it like, oh, wow. And they go in a totally positive direction after it. And then the other person who has this negative experience now associates that negative experience with that group of people. And now they live through that lens, right? So going back to that friend, I feel like in her case, her family wasn't saying negative racist stuff. And she was never around negative racist stuff, but she was also never around Black people. So I feel like in her case, what you're saying is she was like maybe a zero. So she could go either way. Like, oh, okay. Now I've met this Black person. They're pretty cool. And there's nothing for me to be afraid of or prejudiced about. And then that's the way it went. Whereas somebody else, if they lived in a different household, it could be the same thing. They could say the same thing. Listen, my parents were like this. I don't want to be like this. I don't believe in this. But at the same time, they could also say, hey, you know what? I believe what my parents said, and I'm going to not develop this relationship for that reason because these people are this thing that I was told.
Right.
So I feel like it's just how you as an individual sort of internalize the messages that you're being sent.
Yeah, I think you hit the right point there. It's about perception, right? I think I had a conversation a couple of podcasts ago. This is about mental health, right? In the mental health, she also said about the perception, perception of this event being bad or perception of this event being good, it really depends on the person. And then it's like how it's built, right? I mean, where everybody is different, and people may have a different perception. People sometimes that's why, you know, people may say, "Oh, everybody has a different truth," which is bizarre.
Right. But there's one truth. Yeah, right.
Right? Which is bizarre. I was educated engineer, right? So the truth is, if the equation matches, right?
Right.
Left and right, so you get
Exactly.
the A equal this, and that's exact, right?
Now we got the what do they call it? The alternative facts?
Alternative facts.
Come on, people. That's not a thing.
Yeah, but then there's an alternative perception, which is,
Yes.
not fact, but how you perceive this happening or not. So it's just so many nuances out there. So
really are.
Yeah. So, and talking, with you as an educator, that stuff, right? How do you teach them, right? And then, for you have this living these experiences. So how do you teach your students this?
It's funny you're saying this. When I first started teaching, and I was trying not to say the name of the school district, edit that out. And I got to the school district, I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, this is not like a complete life. Meaning, if your kids stay in the suburbs, attend this school district, and this is the only environment that you provide for them, to me, that's the reason why we have issues in the world. Because people have not had experiences to see the humanity of other groups of people. And so I made it my mission as a teacher, and as a Black teacher specifically, to constantly provide opportunities for kids to, first of all, have empathy. Second of all, to have an opportunity to talk about injustice that they've seen. I created something called the Friday Scoop, where the kids can talk about anything that they want.
That's great.
And, we're like, the only rules are it stays in the room, and, it's confidential, and that we listen to each person talk without interrupting by raising their hand. When they're done, if you have a question, you want to have something to say, you have to wait till the person is done with their thought. And for me, that has been one of the best things that I've ever done, because I got a chance to understand, like, what's behind the kid just shows up for their phys ed class. Like, what is behind them? Like, what's going on with them? The other thing that I did a few times, which turned out to be like my best lesson, which has nothing to do with health or phys ed. Well, maybe it has to do with mental health. But I did something called If You Really Knew Me. And I had the kids sit in circles, like 3 or 4 people in a circle, all around the gym. And we went around. You could participate or not participate, but you might say, if you really knew me, what comes after that? So in this moment, I'm going to hit you with it, if you really knew me, okay? So if you really knew me, you would know my father was murdered when I was in 8th grade. So that's the kind of stuff that would come up, right? And to me, that's a way to get kids, adults, and anybody else to understand that, what you see in the moment of a person is not like totally their total experience, right? Their experiences make up who they are. So I might be reacting to something that you think is just like right in front of you, but at the same time, it might be something else. Like, I had to take care of my mother today because she's battling cancer, or whatever it is that the kids, and those are the kind of stories that were coming out with the If You Really Knew Me. So just providing opportunities for kids, number one, to use their voice, and to have empathy for other people. I also have helped our school raise over probably $150,000 for local, regional, and national charities over the past, I want to say 28 years of my teaching. And have people come in that are having whatever experience that we're raising this money from, to talk to the kids about that, to get them to realize that, there's something out there that's bigger than them. So that's sort of the way that I approach it, and I'm real. Like if I'm having a bad day, I say, listen, you guys, I'm having a bad day. I might cry today. I might like say something that's not right. I'll immediately apologize, but just know that that's the type of day I'm having. Whereas there's other teachers that try to hide. I'm like, you give kids the permission to show their feelings when you show that you have feelings.
So true.
So I
just
just
learned
feel
that
like that's
recently,
real.
you know,
Yeah.
but that, I had always been like a close-up person.
Yeah.
It's like my wife said, you know, you always have your fence up.
Break it down. Break them down.
Right, because that's what I grew up with, that skill, right? I'm not that skill. I was taught that you have to, I don't know, man up, or just like, oh, it's nothing, you know. People are having worse day than you. You're like, so.
Yeah.
So yeah. So and then you mention, yeah. So it's like just in that quote, like, why did they do it? Why did they do it? Why are we like what we are like? So you mentioned like, yeah, where did it come from? You know, so it doesn't have to be a big thing. It doesn't have to be like racism or, you know, whatever the hard topics that we are facing right now. It's just like why this person is sad today, right? So rather than, or probably why is this person not doing their work today, right?
Yeah, could be something else.
Could be something. It's not just lazy. Don't just like Margo, yeah, you're lazy. Or like, yeah, probably need to ask them, right? You know?
Yes. Starts with that. Convos.
Convos.
Let's go with the convos.
It's like why we are here, you know, who we are and what we are now, right? There must be something, right? There must be something that we have experienced or we have done in the past that makes who we are today. And then you also mentioned about, I guess like you said, I think you already said that, you know, I think I just need to stress it again, that never anger, never resentment, you know, that's part of your story, despite being called names, not being invited, or even inside the house and have to wait at the porch, you know, those experiences as a child, even I could not imagine experiencing that as an adult, right? But then as a child, it's during your formative years, that's traumatizing.
Yeah, I think I'm sure it's still in there somewhere, and I'm operating out of it in some way. But I'm hoping I'm operating out of it in a positive way.
Right.
I'm sure, like I said before, in the moments I was sad, angry, hurt, all those feelings, experienced all those feelings. Yeah. But over time, I feel like if I hold on to that, if I don't release that, then it eats away at me, right? So I have to figure out a way to transform it. I'm sure it's still here. The energy is probably still here. And that's probably why, because of those experiences, that last year I got my master's in social justice.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you, in community organizing. So I think, the lesson from it was, there's things that you can do about some of these injustices in the world and hopefully have a positive impact and turn some of these things around. And I think I believe that it starts with educating children.
Yes, I think I don't want to say that, you can just forget about the adults, but sometimes like there are things that it's going to take one generation at least.
Yes.
Right. So right now with all this problems that we're facing, and then people are being open about it, people express this displeasure about policy or whatever, right? And yeah, hopefully when they're kids, right? When they see their parents, experiencing this, they may have a different opinions, right? They may say, oh yeah, those are bad, but it's just sad and scary that we have to experience it right now.
Yeah.
Right. And how do you deal with that? And then especially when things happen, for example, during the George Floyd murder, how was your interaction with the kids, with your students?
So that's when I want to say that was when I was teaching. I think I taught cyber school that year. So I was teaching the cyber school for our school district. And I know there's a couple of things that I did. I know one thing that I did is I went back to my roots of Friday Scoop. I let the kids talk about anything that they were feeling about what happened. I didn't pretend, and I'm sure that I probably was not allowed to do this. However, I didn't pretend like nothing happened or nothing was going on. Like, let's talk about it. How are you feeling? And I also,
let me
yes,
ask. Were the students predominantly white still, or
predominantly white.
okay, even for this cyber school you mentioned,
Yes,
right?
predominantly white. Yes, predominantly white. I probably had out of, let's say I had 150 kids, there's probably like maybe 3 to 5 Black, maybe 2% of another cultural background, but yeah, predominantly white. So that was one thing I did. And then former students that I had, and this may be the biggest compliment I've ever gotten. I had one of my former students who is now, at that time when George Floyd was murdered, was in college. She said that she was texting with her friends and saying, can you believe this? Did you see that video? Blah, blah, blah. And they literally the next day, and this is what she said to me. She said, Coach, the kids call me Coach. Like, Coach, I thought of you, and I thought about how you stand up for everything and how you taught us to do this. And the next day they started an organization. And they had a parade, they had a benefit concert, they had like a protest, they had a rally, and that organization literally just got a group from the Urban League, an award from the Urban League this past year for all the work that they have done since George Floyd's murder. So that was like one of the best compliments, that I actually influenced somebody to say that, hey, I can do something about what's happening. And and they petitioned the school board of our district to make changes because they recognized that there were marginalized students within the school district that were hurting. They weren't murdered, but at the same time, they were hurting based on some policies and things that were going on within the school district. And so that's what they did. It's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool, especially as a teacher. Then you see that they're blossoming and they're actually thriving and excel.
Yeah, so amazing.
Beautiful.
So amazing.
I could see it in your face. You're so proud.
So amazing. And the one kid, now I didn't know him, but he was part of this group. But the one kid literally ran for school board in the district and won the primary, and people will be able to vote for him in November.
Oh.
Yeah, like he took it to the next level.
Yeah.
Next level. So literally being Gandhi's quote, he's being the change that he would like to see.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Congratulations to the teacher.
Yeah. Hey.
Yeah. So circling back when you're growing up, and you mentioned in your story that you had neighbors that became your friends.
Debbie, Missy, and Eddie.
Debbie, Missy, and Eddie. There you go.
That's them.
Right. So
yeah.
And now I'm like thinking about friends in my childhood, right? And I remember, I had friends who don't look like me, but they're my friends, and who stood up for me sometimes.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I can't, not 100%, but sometimes they stood up for me, right?
Absolutely.
Which is enough, right? And that's great.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that also influenced who you are right now, right? Because hey, not everybody is
not
against
everybody.
you, right? So
well, I don't know if this came through when I did the story, but it was Debbie, Missy, and Eddie who I would be on their porch looking into the
and also the
party.
grandmother,
and that was the grandmother.
Yes.
I want to make sure and it was the grandmother. I was in between their house and their grandmother's house, and then our house was right in the middle. And so the adults in their world were saying, hey, you probably shouldn't be associated with this person. But they were saying, we want to be associated with this person.
And the three of them, they're the kids of three, right? I mean, that's it. So they're like rebellious.
Yeah, love it. Debbie, Missy, and Eddie.
All right, so if you're there,
I wish I knew their last names. I would look them up in a heartbeat.
Yes. So we need, certainly, right, in this situation, we need people like, Debbie, Missy, and Eddie.
That's
we
right.
need Debbie, Missy, and Eddie in our lives. I mean,
Yeah.
it's sure that we are empowered to do it ourselves, but we need allies. I guess that's the word, right? So
Yeah.
in all this cost, all this activity, all this stuff that we are doing right now, we need to have allies. Especially, it's hard to change the system while we are in the system, unless we have allies to help us
Yeah.
navigate through this change, right? And so that's the past that makes who you are now. And then sometime in February this year, I think I met you.
Yeah.
In the Obama High School, right?
Oh, that's right. That's right.
So
Shout out to Dr. Jamil Bey.
and so it's a taking back our human rights, building a Black regional agenda for justice. So, and you are in the education.
I was in education.
All right. So I think I was not planning to be there, but my wife was, and then she's like, "Come on, just come over." And then,
of course.
And also we brought our daughter, so we want to expose our daughter to say, "Hey, this is what your parents are doing," and so.
I love it.
So what's going on with the education? I mean, education is a big thing, like you said. I mean, the kids are our future. The students are our future, right? So this is the skip generation education that we have to do to make sure that they're on the right path, they have the right mindset, they have the right belief. We don't want them to be Republican or Democratic. We just want them to have their own opinions, but they have to value human rights, right? And so what's going on in the education sphere?
If I'm being honest, which I should be, education right now, right? You have the fight just for what we talked about before, the truth, right? Meaning that there is a legislative agenda to get rid of the true history of our country, which also means to erase the histories of the people that represent that, whether it's indigenous people or it's African Americans. There's an effort in education to destroy that history, or destroy our memory of that history. It's active, like it's being implemented by school boards across the country, just based on lies, I would say, and half truths. First, we had that anti-CRT critical race theory, as if it was ever being taught in schools. It never has been, and it probably never would have been. But for some reason, that translated into, like, we can't talk about anything that has to do with race, right? So now teachers feel like, they have no idea what they can talk about in their classroom. And some people are literally being fired for bringing up certain things in the classroom. I know of at least one or two librarians that are being called on the carpet for books in elementary schools that have been fine in elementary schools for the duration of time. But all of a sudden now, there's a situation where we can't talk about certain things. And it only really takes like one parent to say, hey, that book's not right, or hey, that teacher was talking about this in her classroom. And it's what you said. We don't need people to be, cookie cutters or robots or anything like that, but we should be teaching people to think for themselves. And the only way that they can think for themselves is if we provide them with the information to do that. But if we're trying to make good citizens, we're not trying to make well-rounded, thoughtful decision makers. We're trying to make good citizens. Those are two different agendas. We want people to have an allegiance to the idea of the American dream, but not what the American dream could be individually for people based on their own beliefs and wants and desires. So yeah, there's definitely an active effort to dismantle public education and to prevent children from having access to the truth about our country.
So are you talking this at the local level or somewhere else, like in Florida, for example. That's a given, right?
100% Florida, I believe. That's probably where it started with DeSantis. But yeah, that's probably where it started. And now it's part of a covert, overt agenda that's sweeping the country. Like this
Including
legislation is
here
coming
in LA,
everywhere.
including
Oh
in
yeah,
Pennsylvania, South and West Pennsylvania.
100%, including in Pennsylvania. Yeah, there are active bills for so many things in Harrisburg right now, waiting to be passed. That they're scary. They're scary. So yeah, that's one of the things that I'm passionate about, and that's why I think I may have to retire early, legitimately, because I can't see not speaking out or speaking up or standing in my truth about my own experience, for example, as a teacher, which I would say at least, I'm going to say I'll go out, this number I'm making up, but I know it's around this, at least 20 years of my 31 years of teaching, I've been the only African-American teacher in my school. So I am the only access to a Black role model that any of these kids have in their school for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. To me, that's like horrific. And it goes back to what I said before. How are we supposed to break down some of these barriers and stereotypes and different things we have if we don't have community, if you're not in proximity to other cultures and other races? Like, how do we break down these walls? I just don't know how you do it without proximity.
Right. The representation of other people in our environment, and also, again, where we come from, right? I must say in general, like an American, we have to know why we're doing what we're doing, right? Or what we have done in the past.
Right.
But I see that it's not just like citizenry problems, right? But even in a company, even in a corporation, even in a nonprofit, sometimes we try not to talk about the problem. We have a lot of projects, we have a lot of activities, but then they're not addressing, why are we doing this? Right? What's the problem we're trying to solve? They may just say, okay, this is our goal, blah, blah, blah. But yeah.
But what is the problem we're trying to solve?
Right? Probably they are afraid that what they're doing not actually addressing the problem. It's okay if you know, and then you tell it that, okay, it's only addressing 10% of the problem.
Yes.
It's all right. Right? Then probably the 90% or the 50% of the problem is just so hard. It's okay. Just admit it. Just put it there. Just put it out there. Just be transparent that, yes, what do they call it? Like low-hanging fruits.
Yes.
Right now, we can only do low-hanging fruits for whatever reason. Could be the budget, could be the resource, could be we want to get elected, whatever, right? So sometimes we just want to see whoever that everybody will approve, right? Right. But then the other things have to be stated, right? Like you mentioned, like educating the kids, a part of it is educating them about the history. There's a saying that says that history will repeat itself. It's so true.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't blame you if you want to retire next year.
Might be a thing. Might be a thing.
Yeah. So in that committee, so what is their charter? What is their goal? What are they trying to accomplish?
Say it one more time.
In the
committee.
The committee, yes.
Really, Dr. Bay, and I don't want to speak for him, but what I would say is, in every level of community, whether it's environmental justice, social justice, education, just access to resources, and all those areas that the groups came together with over the Obama Academy, I believe that the overall mission is an equitable and just Pittsburgh for everyone. Like, how can we get to an equitable and just Pittsburgh for everybody? So including those marginalized communities, and not just, trying to solve problems for them, but how do we include the stakeholders in their own elevation. I believe that, and that's me sort of channeling Dr. Bay right now.
Yeah, which is hard when you mention like stakeholders, right? Stakeholders, just like us as individuals, everyone has their own goal and desire and their whatever what they think a perfect thing is, right? So and yeah, that's why the community building is hard, right? Community effort is sometimes just ridiculously painful, right? Because
Yes.
everybody has their own wish and everybody has a again, going back, if you think about it, everybody has a different perception of what the problem is.
Consensus is hard. Yeah.
Right. And then, and then how you address it. And then when you address it and try to solve it, you always use your own ability, right?
Yeah.
Also your own capability. This is what I can do. So the solution is things that I can do, right? But other people may have a different take on that. So it's just hard to collaborate. Even though sometimes we kind of know the problem, or we know the problem, we just sometimes we don't want to say it, but then we know what we want to do. But then to have everybody, stakeholders involved, working together towards the same thing is just hard.
It really is.
Yeah, I remember that I was in the youth subgroup, and we had some lively discussions.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And it's about whether it's going to be centralized or whether it's going to be in certain neighborhood, but if it's only certain neighborhood, then some other neighbors would not get it. Like, it's all about how big, because the problem is citywide, right? So we can't, and we don't want to bust people. We don't want people to expect people to transfer it. It takes a lot of resources and time to make it happen. So it's a hard process.
It is very hard. I just gave Dr. Leanne Younger her doctorate just now, which I think she's working towards that. So there you go. Hey, what is it? I manifested that for her. But we're in a process of creating a survey for each of the neighborhoods, for the people within the neighborhoods to start identifying maybe just their top 3 concerns within their own neighborhood, and to prioritize those things as we go forth with trying to create the change that we're talking about. So that's another thing that's happening that I'm sort of out there trying to help create and make come true. So hopefully that gets to the people, and then we get people to want to work on those things. Once we identify, okay, these are your 3 things, who in the neighborhood is ready to tackle it?
Right.
That's the next step. Like, we need people that want to not talk about it, but actually tackle it. Like, they actually want to get involved, like get up and get out of the house and get this thing done. So
yeah, that's really the hard part.
That's the hard part.
Right, because if they're passionate about it, if about their own neighborhood, if about their own community, and if they're willing to do it and they're committed to do it,
that's the thing. That's the key. That's the key.
It's like figuring out who they are and whether they actually have time to do it.
Time is a factor for everybody.
Yeah.
Time is a factor.
So, like another thing that I'm quoting you here is like you mentioned about resilience, resistance, and resolve.
Oh yeah.
Can you elaborate on that?
I love that. So I'm going to start with resolve. Like, I have a lot of resolutions. Like, I resolve to do a lot of things. And I think the main thing that I am passionate about is giving youth a voice. So that's where my resolve really is. So if I have any opportunities to work in partnership with youth, because once again, it's not about me giving you your voice. It's about me providing a platform for you to use your voice in the way that you choose to use it. So I definitely have resolve for that. And I would say resilience comes, I had to have resilience to make it 31 years in the same school district. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I definitely had to have resilience there. And I think I'm winding down my career And it was resistance. My other one was in resistance. My whole life has been about just resisting injustice, no matter where it is. I want to always be able to resist and stand up and hopefully offer a hand and a solution, not just a hand, but a solution, and my work ethic to the things that I am most passionate about, that I feel like are affecting specifically the Black community and also our youth.
Right. And I mentioned this resilience, resistance, and resolve. Like, okay, why the resistance? Like, what is the angle here? I'm glad that you mentioned that.
Yeah. Yes.
And
resisting injustice.
Resisting injustice, and and then you mentioned in your story too. It's like your call for action actually is where can you speak up on behalf of others in your life, right? And also who needs your voice that you can amplify. Yeah, that's true. That's I think that's what you're doing in the committee, right? And then, like you said about this survey, trying to get all these voices from all these neighborhoods that we have. Hey, speak up and take command of those problems.
And I recently, and literally, this is like in the last, I'm going to say 2 to 3 weeks, I have really been asking myself that question: who needs your voice? And when I start paying attention, I start seeing things on television, like little documentaries. I've started just listening to legislation that's been happening. And when I asked myself that question, what came through loud and clear was that transgender women are really being attacked right now. And before the last 2 or 3 weeks, I really had no opinion either way in terms of, speaking up for them. And then I started thinking about it. It's like that, and I can't remember exactly how it goes. First they came for this group, and so we moved over here, then they came for this group, and then all of a sudden they came for me, and there was nobody to speak up. There was nobody to help me because guess what? Nobody had helped before that. So that's why what I'm feeling about transgender women with the legislation that's happening and being murdered, specifically Black transgender women are being murdered, and there's really no investigations or anything. And I just feel like, the way it's going, like, I'm pretty sure, and not sure, I know they're getting rid of diversity, equity, inclusion in colleges. It's ironic, Clarence Thomas gave the opinion on that but for diversity, equity, inclusion, and affirmative action, I'm pretty sure the brother would not be on the Supreme Court. So, right now I feel like myself and other Black people really need to speak up on the subject of transgender women being really violently attacked on all fronts. So that's where I'm at right now. I'm trying to figure out how I do that, but I guess I'm doing it now because I'm speaking up on your podcast. It's in the Convos.
Awesome. Yeah. So that's another hard work, right? So you have a lot of things on your plate: education, transgender, retirement. So
there it is.
All right. So you have anything to say? Your last words for our audience?
My last words would be what you just said. Where can you speak up in your life for other people? That's where I think I ended on Storyberg. I like to end there now. Just something that people can think about. Where can you speak up? Who needs your voice? And then also I would end with saying, thank you, Will. This has been amazing.
Right. Thank you.
Appreciate you so much.
Thank you. Same here. And if you have stories, if you know, also with the audience, if you have friends or you yourself would like to tell your story, we have coaches that will help you. Nobody is storyteller, but everybody has a story.
I love that.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.